was born in Camden. I was raised near Trenton, and like going into these my hood, right, and seeing these kids that look like me, that came from families like me, and they just didn't have access to the beautiful things that my kids do. And I was like, okay, we gotta fix this. And it's really easy, right? Like give a kid a book, show them an author that looks like them or talks like them, and you've changed their life forever, because that's what it was for me.
Welcome to the Kindness Is podcast, where we take a deep dive into the true meaning of kindness. I'm your host, Caitlin Johnstone, the co-founder of Kind Cotton. Let's dive in.
Wake up.
When I heard that there was a publishing company that centers all voices, first of all, I knew that I had to reach out to the founder. But then I started hearing about how they had some funding pulled for being on the side of humanity. I knew that I really needed to chat with my guest today. Please listen to this episode all the way through. Please find ways to support Row House Publishing, because all of these stories need to be heard and shared with the world. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Kindness Is pod. Today I have Rebekah Borucki on. Rebekah goes by she, they pronouns and is a mixed race, neuro-righteous mother to 5, grandmother to 1, self-help and children's author, and the founder and president of Row House, Wheat Penny Press, and the WPP Little Readers Big Change Initiative, which is a nonprofit delivering literacy programming to students in underestimated school districts and grants to Black and Brown creatives and booksellers. Rebekah, I'm so honored to have you here. And before we even hit play on this podcast, we were really happy to even connect, because I feel like there's so much overlap in what we both do.
Definitely. I'm not correcting you, because I know that it's a word that I made up. It is not neuro-righteous, it's neuro-riotous.
Oh, I'm happy that you told me that.
Someone come for me. I swear. Person. But it's not, and I'll tell you my diagnosis. I'm autistic. I have ADHD. I have a lot of different diagnoses that I think are overlapping, and probably I just need to say neuroritis. Like, it's a lot going on up here. So yeah.
I'm happy that you corrected me on that, because my ADHD brain prior to this, it's so funny how you, which I'm sure you can understand. Sometimes it's like you let everything go, and then other times you're like zero, like focusing, honing in on everything. And I swear I looked at that word like 5 million times and was like, I've never heard of this before.
It's not a real word.
Yeah, well, and it makes sense. Can you explain to me exactly what it means in your mind?
Neuroritis?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you that I struggled with mental wellness, mental illness, mental health from the time I was 8 years old. And it was a long journey that I think if it wasn't the 80s, if I wasn't a little girl, I would have gotten a better diagnosis. But it was never identified that I was autistic until much later in life. And the complications, the result, the consequences of that was that I was always trying to just like figure out how to navigate in the world. So I didn't have, I'll say, the privilege of a diagnosis. So I had to make up a lot of things, and it created a brain that is much different than anyone with just a straightforward diagnosis that they had for their whole lives. And I don't want to say that their experience is better or easier, but for me, no diagnosis feels complete, because I've had to make so many different adjustments for it. So yeah, it's like a circus going on up there. It's fun. I think that it's hard sometimes. It's made me who I am, so I don't want to change it. I think it allows me to see the world in a very different way. It allows me to approach kindness and activism in very different ways, very logical left brain ways. So yeah, that's what it is. It's a lot of mess and a lot of joy at the same time.
I really love that. I feel like a lot of people who've been diagnosed as an adult probably feels that way.
Totally.
I mean, yeah, not in the same exact way, obviously, because we're all different. But I was just diagnosed ADHD like 6 months ago, and I'm like, holy shit! Like this.
I am, and there's so much. I think that's affirming, and it's healing to get that diagnosis. So I have some resentment about not having it sooner, but yeah, it's it's wild, and it's this, but I'm looking at it as this really cool journey of self-discovery. And also thank you so much for asking me that question, because no one has asked what it actually means. And this is my first opportunity to express that. So thank you.
It's beautiful. I'm so into like all of that now, having a new diagnosis, right? Like I'm just so interested in the way all of our minds work, and that's what makes us who we are. And I think that's really special, which leads me into who you are, right? Because
Mhm.
it's all that beautiful mess that you talk about that has enabled you to create all of these incredible things that you have created. So can you take us on that journey a little bit of what inspired you to A, work with children, B, have it be in the form of literacy, and
Mhm.
just tell us a little bit about your story.
As far as working with children, my journey to become a children's book author after I was already writing self-help for adults was really kind of healing my inner child type of thing. They're the books that I needed. And when I was a little one, and Zara, my main character, my children's series, she's 7 years old because my onset of mental illness really happened at 8 years old. So if I had these materials when I was 7, if I had language around what I was feeling, I think that the trajectory of my entire life would have been different. And then, with the literacy stuff, well, first of all, I'm someone who struggles to read still at 45 years old. I think now it's about like 23 to 26 books on my nightstand, because I read a different chapter of a different book every single night. I can't stay focused. And that's okay. It's like, that's me, and it's good, and I get the information. But I struggle to read. It made me feel stupid. It made me drop out of high school in my senior year, because I was just so frustrated with having to try so hard and people not understanding that my brain worked differently.
Mm.
So that's important to me, to educate people about literacy and all the different ways there are to be literate, including listening to audiobooks, reading comic books, like all that good stuff. And going into way too many schools at the beginning of just reading my book to people, or reading my book to classrooms, and seeing too many schools that had fewer books in their libraries than I do at my house. And especially going into schools like in Philly and Baltimore and Camden. I was born in Camden. I was raised near Trenton, and like going into these my hood, right, and seeing these kids that looked like me, that came from families like me, and they just didn't have access to the beautiful things that my kids do. And I was like, okay, we gotta fix this. And it's really easy, right? Like, give a kid a book, show them an author that looks like them or talks like them, and you've changed their life forever. Because that's what it was for me.
I have chills up and down my body. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, which most of you are not, you listen to it, I am just filled with so much joy hearing that, because very similarly to you, obviously in different ways, right? Like I always want to preface this with, in many ways I was seen and represented, right?
Mhm.
Because of me being white, because of me being cis and straight passing,
Mhm.
and all of those things, I had the opportunity to see myself. But there were also a lot of areas in which my dad was diagnosed bipolar when I was really, really little, and it
Mhm.
got pushed under the rug, and we never spoke about it, and I never had any tools to help me, which is why I think I put off all of my own mental health stuff until much later in life. It
Yeah.
literally took a pandemic to happen for me to be like, oh,
Mhm.
I need to talk about this stuff, and I need to see this stuff. And that is why we are so aligned in that every single book that we donate through Kind Cotton is one in which a child is going to feel seen and
Yeah.
loved and represented for who they are,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the statistics? And I know I didn't tell you this question beforehand, so you may not know exactly, but we probably both have a roundabout idea about the statistics in which children's books are shown or are published, right? Like
Sure. Yeah.
white main characters, animals, like I know they're really
Yeah.
high on the
Oh,
list, right?
I love to speak to this, because I'll say at Wheat Penny Press, we don't publish books with animals as main characters. While I own them, I love them, I love a llama llama pajama, whatever it is. Like, I
Yeah,
love them
yeah.
too. But it's really important that we swing the pendulum. We try to just shift to that, because there are more books centering animal characters than all of the other marginalized identities combined. So that is a super alarming statistic. And this one I'm going to approach carefully because I want people to really absorb and listen and understand why this is important. Most books featuring Black and brown characters in children's books are written by white authors.
Listen to that again.
Most books written about or centering Black and brown characters are written by white authors. And while I, as a biracial, my dad's Black, my mom's white, I write a book about a biracial little girl, we have white friends, we have Black friends, we have all these different like characters in the book. It is important for me that I have an understanding of the main character's experience so I can speak to that in the world. And people are like, well, it's not just race and we're more than our race. And I'm like, yes, but it's the way that we interact in this society. It's the way we are received in this society. So I need to have an understanding of how Zara would react in a new school setting where she's feeling uncomfortable or being bullied by someone that might be from the dominant culture. And while we don't address race in the book, it is part of everything that Zara is. So continue to, and I'm speaking to children's authors, I'm speaking to parents that are buying books for their kids, continue to focus on story, focus on, your child loving the book, reading to your child, but also look for that authenticity. I think it's really important for the story it's really important for children to have real understanding of the children that they're reading about or the people they're reading about, even if they're fictional. That's how we build true compassion, true empathy. So, yeah.
But it's also really important to pay BIPOC authors. Like if given the choice, right? Between, yeah, I mean, so yeah. I just put out my own book, my first book too, 2 months ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. I know it's, let me tell you, self-publishing, that's a whole conversation we could have. But I chose that for very specific reasons that we don't need to get into. But it was very important to me that although there are themes throughout the book of love and empathy and compassion and inclusion and justice and all these things that we have spoken about, that the main character is white because I am a white author. Yeah. And I think it speaks to that authenticity. And then going into the books that we donate or the book blogs that we put up, right? Like Black History Month is coming up. We're centering books about Black history and ensuring that the author is Black. Because it feels very, I guess, unauthentic, like you were saying, to highlight an author who does not have that lived experience.
Well, the financial part of it, and I'm glad you brought that up because I usually don't. I mean, definitely one of our core values at Row House is paying people equitably. And, we have authors of all races, all backgrounds, religions. We have disabled authors, queer authors, all of it. So, but it's really important that there's this equity part. And because if you go out into the real world of publishing, Black and brown authors, LGBTQ authors, disabled authors, if they're even being published, are not being paid equitably. So that's part of it. And how do we have true liberation if we're not empowered financially, especially in this society, in a capitalist society? So it takes a little bit more work. Usually you'll find the author's picture on the flap of the book, or you can, we all have these computers in our pockets. It takes a little bit more work, but it is worth it. And I'll say that it's just as important for white kids to have books representing characters different from them, to know. There's a really beautiful quote, and I'm going to butcher it. So I'll just say, though, it's important for white children to know that they aren't the center of the universe, that they're not the king and queen in every story. It builds empathy, it builds understanding, it builds a worldliness, it fosters curiosity. So show your kids pictures and stories of people that aren't like them. I would say to marginalized identities, it's not as important because we're forced to see it all the time. It takes a little work, totally worth it for your kid.
Absolutely. 100%. It brings me back to, and people who've listened to the podcast or have known me for a long time have heard this story, but I think it's an important one to tell. I got asked once if I cared so much about Black lives, like someone, I don't know, a student in my class mom saw something that I posted on social media, and she responded to it, if you care so much about Black lives, why do you teach in a predominantly white school? And I said, for that reason, because Black and brown children don't need a white woman to come in and save them. But white children need a white woman who is going to show them that other people exist in this world aside from them, because that's how we build empathy. And, you know, I never got a response or anything.
White allies is important. And, you know, and it doesn't say, like, look, as a biracial Black woman, I'm kind of like leaving aside woman of color because that's the thing I'm not using anymore.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the homogenization of Black and brown people either. I think we have to be really specific about identity now. I think it's super, super important to honor that in people. And same for white people, like know your history, know your tribe, know your background. So important because that's been stolen from you too. But we need white allyship. It doesn't disempower me at all to say that. Like, I know I'm powerful. I know I have agency in this world, but it is limited, currently limited. So we need people to go into white teachers, mostly women, right, to go into their classrooms and say, no, we're not going to. Black History Month, we can talk about somebody else in Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, and Martin Luther King.
Yes, exactly.
But my goodness, there are so many other people.
Yeah, for sure.
You need that speaking up because you will be received with more kindness and acceptance than a Black woman teacher going in and saying that. It's an unfortunate truth. It's not what I want to be true, but it is true.
Yeah, for sure. Rebekah, we've like shied away from all that you do, but I'm very excited because
this is what I do.
Yeah, we could talk for a really long time about a lot of things. This may end up being a 2-part episode. I'm unsure, but I want to know a little bit more about starting Row House and your publishing company and why it was so important. I mean, we've shared why it was so important through the books that you published and everything a little bit, but tell us what it has been like starting your own publishing company. Also, am I correct in saying that you're one of the only Black publishing companies?
Well, we're not a Black publishing company.
Okay.
But and this is important because this comes up a lot for us.
Okay.
I think it's a result of people not seeing Black leadership in their own lives enough that when they see like a Black or brown person, and this goes for like, if you see a gay person, it automatically, whatever you put them on makes it that, right? We represent, I will say that more than half of our authors are Black women, and then the majority of our authors are Black people. That is only because that's what's missing from the shelves. We're looking for the voices that are missing. We're raising the volume on voices that matter, but we have white folks. I think we have a couple white cis men, maybe. I think we have one white cis straight man. Looking at our demographics. It's not intentional in the way that we're looking to fill, spots, check boxes. What we're intentionally looking for stories that haven't been told. And where are those coming from? From these groups, right? So we're not a Black publishing house. Yes, we are one of the only publishing houses, especially that's competing in a larger market that is Black, brown owned.
That's what I meant. Sorry.
But that's an important distinction. I'm glad that way because people say all the time, like, oh, they say they're a Black publishing house, but they have a white co-founder, or oh, they're a Black publishing house, but they have like all these white authors. And it's like, no. We are a publishing house bringing books to the people that are centered and focused on social justice, whether it's fiction, whether it's children's. Like, our focus is on healing what is broken, specifically here in the United States, and then hopefully that keeps out into the world because we have such great influence. But yeah, there's a lot broken. So you're working. And I'm one of only 150 Black women who have raised more than $1 million in the history of the world. It's 150. I don't know how extraordinary that feels to you, but it's sickening that it's true. And I'm hoping that shifts very quickly. But Black women in general have been left out of venture capital or receiving capital always. Yeah.
That's a really frightening statistic.
Yeah.
That right there should tell you everything that you need to know, not only about publishing and books, but about capitalism in general.
And also, I can't not say, because a lot of people are not seeing me, like they're listening to this podcast, but I have light skin privilege. I navigate white spaces as an ambiguously brown person. There's a reason why that, like, I'm not the smartest, I'm not the most clever. There's a reason why I get the opportunities that I get. And so I see that also as my responsibility to make sure that I am platforming people that would otherwise not have the ease of opportunity that I do. So
yeah, thank you for adding that in there. That is a really important piece. So what is happening currently with Row House? Because the way that I found out about Rebekah and all the incredible work that she does is I saw a post that a friend had shared about some struggles that you all are going through, and I think it's important, if you feel like it, explaining why you were going through those struggles too, because I think that's something that needs to be heard.
I'll say that there has been a lot of hesitance in me sharing this struggle because for the past couple of years, the dance that I've been doing is navigating these systems where people aren't interested in investing in Black women, in businesses that represent people of marginalized identities. So I've been doing this dance to kind of like, everything's okay, so that investors want to come in and we get that big money, have that faith. And also, I just like don't want to give satisfaction to the people that said that we couldn't do it. The truth of the matter is that we raised $1.2 million in our first year, and it costs a lot more to run a publishing house than that. We have more than 50 titles, either published or upcoming, all brilliant. We have 2 New York Times bestsellers, one of which was #1 on the New York Times children's list, which is virtually impossible.
Amazing.
Like awards and recognition and grants and like all these really crazy, amazing stuff for things for our authors. That success, first of all, actually financially is something that we were not able to, we weren't prepared for. And the way publishing works, because people are like, you're having all the success, how are you losing money? Because we pay to produce our books around $75,000 to $100,000 a book with the author advance, production, all that. And we don't get that money back until usually about 3 months after the book is published. So there's a 9-month lag between we have invested all the money and then we're waiting for the money. So there's that. So millions of dollars, because we are $1 million business. We earned more than $1 million in our first year. Most of that money has gone into just producing the books, and we're still waiting to get it back. So there was that. We were the victims of wire fraud. That sucked. We had $20,000 stolen from us. And then the regular growing pains of business. So that created a gap of about $500,000 last May. Wow. And I don't have quit in me. I'm from the hood. I'm scrappy as F, like all those good things. I was like, I cried a lot. I went out and I asked for help. We got that gap down to about $200,000 in October, which was a phenomenal achievement, I feel. And that gap remained. We were looking for private investors. And we had someone come in and say, yeah, we're going to take care of this. We're going to invest in the company. We're going to take care of this gap. We're going to give you extra cushion. And then the attack on Israel and the subsequent reaction on the Palestinian people. And I don't want to go into it too much, but that's what happened. And because of our not political stance, but our values, our core values and our stance and our dialogue around that caused a few people to take back their support, but also that very, very, very big investor at $500,000. So that just happened. And what that left us with when January 1st turned, we couldn't pay anybody. We couldn't pay our printers. We couldn't pay our production. Everything ground to a halt. They're like, if you don't give us $30,000 today, like we're not printing this book. The worst part of it though is not being able to pay our authors. We have never not paid our authors and our illustrators and our creatives. Like the printers can, they can kick rocks for a minute, like they'll wait. So we most recently just launched an emergency fundraiser and became completely transparent because I had to resolve, as a person who is radical in her politics, but also in her life and her practice, I can't tap dance for people who don't care about us. And when I came out in 2021 fundraising, like I came with all the fire and the fury and the optimism that our people in our community would help us make this thing. And they did. And I'm seeing through this last 48 hours that remains true. Not $1 of big money has come into Row House. It's the people. And I regret and a little bit of shame that I forgot that. And I needed this reminder too, that we are the ones here to save us. And there's enough of us. So we're getting out of the hole. I've already sent some checks out like over the past 48 hours, like, okay, I get to pay this person. I get to pay this person. We had a big emergency community meeting yesterday. Our authors, our community is amazing. Love that was in that room. Just saying, we got you. There's no quitting us either. But that's where we are. We've raised over the past 2 days, nearly $45,000. And when I say it came in $5 at a time, like that's 1,000 donations. We still have about 200,000 to go to put us in a good place. Another 100,000 will give us so much breathing room that I think that we can find other solutions. We'll still have to hustle, but we can do it. So
this is the perfect opportunity to tell everyone how they can support you, how they can go and give just that $5, as Rebekah just shared with you. I think a lot of the times I saw this quote recently, and I can't remember exactly where it was from. So excuse me, I'll try to put it in the show notes. But it said, "But what can I do?" said 7 billion people.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful in any situation. Right? We can't succumb to the idea that we can't do anything and that our voices don't matter, because that's exactly what and this is going off the rails a little bit, but that's exactly what systems want, right? They want us to think that we cannot do anything. And I think collective power and community, just as you were explaining, is incredibly moving. So tell everyone how they can give you that $5 or $50 or share
$10,000. We'll take that too.
Yes.
And we know there's people in our audience that can. So I'll say this: supportrowhouse.com. Supportrowhouse.com goes right to our GoFundMe. I truly, and please let me, this is a girl who grew up with a whole, like, I sat on my toilet and I could see down into my dining room. Like, we had a hole in the floor. Like, I am from humble beginnings. I value your $1 donation. I honestly do, because here's the truth. We have 36,000 followers at Row House. I have like 47,000 followers on my platform. We have, among all of our authors, there's probably like 7 to 10 million people following them. Imagine if just a tiny portion of those people all send $1, right? Now, not everyone's going to, not everyone can. Sharing is currency. You don't know who's in your audience. I will say now, and I hope she's not listening, but Stacey Abrams gave us a little shout yesterday, and she said that she wants to get on a phone call with me. So
amazing.
We've had there are authors, I won't name their names. There are authors whose books are on my nightstand, that ADHD nightstand, who donated, that I've never met, and I'm gigantic fans of. So it is reaching far and wide, and I know that we can do this. I know that we can do this. We could do this in a day. So I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic, but it does take that action. You do actually have to press that button. We have a GoFundMe. If you go to our Instagram at Row House Pub, we have all these scrolls of like QR codes, Venmo, Zelle, the Cash App, like, just send us the money.
Anyway,
% of it. I don't take a salary yet. Most, new founders don't. So it's not like I'm sacrificing. I don't take a salary yet. 100% of this money is going to pay our people. 100%. So yes, please support rowhouse.com.
It's amazing. Yes, do it. We're going to be sharing multiple ways throughout the week too. About
and play our books and share our posts and all those good things too.
Yeah. There's so many amazing books. It's so funny. Actually, I have to say that I knew about you like maybe a week before all of this started happening, because I connected with Quinn.
Quinn Miller Murphy.
Yes. And what my ancestors ate.
What did my ancestors eat?
Yeah. So I'm very excited about featuring that book.
So good. I hope my authors aren't listening. It's my favorite book so far. It's my favorite book.
It looks so beautiful. I'm really, really, really excited to amplify her work. But this would not be the Kindnesses podcast if I did not ask you, before we leave this incredible conversation, if you could redefine kindness, Rebekah, what would it look like? How would you define it? What is kindness to you?
I'm going to tell you a little story. Do you have like 2 minutes to hear a story?
I do. Yeah.
So I'm not going to redefine it. I'm going to tell you how it was shown to me, or it was the example that kindness was for me. So I grew up under the poverty line my entire life. Does not mean that my parents weren't very, very hardworking people. My dad worked 7 days a week as a construction worker. And he was an example of someone who has been hurt so much, suffered the worst abuse that I think any human being could, and turn that into an understanding that it is so important for us to look at every single person on this planet as family. I was 5 years old. I was born in 1978, so this is 1983, and I could hear my parents fighting downstairs in the kitchen, and it was like this horrible, very, very loud screaming fight. And my dad was doing a job for this older couple who had their son, had to bring their son home because he was dying of AIDS. Everybody died of AIDS then. And it was also not being spoken about in public at all, in mainstream news or anything. The president wouldn't say the word. And he had done this job for them, and he had done it for no money. So they paid for the supplies, but he had to build this whole addition on their house so that their son could be brought home and they could take care of them as elderly people. And my mother was screaming and saying, like, how can you do this? We hardly have money to put food on our table. And he's like, she said, you have to take care of your family first. And he said, but Anne, what's her name? He said, but Anne, this is our family. And I can't say that when I was younger, it was always like very appreciated that like we had nothing and my parents were still going out and doing for other people. But it gave me this real sense of community and kindness and love that too many of us are never witness to. And it was instilled in me on like a DNA level that I can't avoid. So kindness is what you do when you do for others, what you would do for the people that you love the most in the world. When you do for strangers, kindness are things that are done in quiet that nobody sees. Sometimes it's done in public, but a lot of it can happen in quiet. It's like really when like no one is watching, like how are you being in the world? That was my dad. And that's who I hope to be in the world.
So I hope no one similarly to when you said that's my favorite book, and I hope no one else is listening. I hope anyone who has ever listened and been on my podcast doesn't hear this, but that is my favorite definition. That was a really beautiful story, and I appreciate you sharing your vulnerability with us. I appreciate you sharing your work with us today. We're going to get you. Everyone is going to get you to that.
I want to say just quickly, like, I know that you're going to get me, and I know, and it's proof that vulnerability is important, and honesty. Like, it's not like, this like icky, like, oh, I got to tell you my business. But vulnerability is so important because it allows people into our stories and allows people to see us for us and then better see themselves. I should have always known that people had our backs. I should have always known this. And when we forget that is when we disconnect from our humanity and our community. So we should all know that we have each other if we speak up and ask.
Yes. And there's this interesting piece. And it's another thing, societally speaking, that I feel like we've been taught not to, right? That there is this sense of like, you have to do so many things on your own. And yeah, it's
who benefits from that truth?
No one.
Right. Who benefits? And this is the way, and I'll say communities are broken up, families are broken up. It's a lie it does benefit some people. It's a lie that enriches people that benefit from us thinking that we can't do it on our own, that we need their product, that we need their whatever. But yeah, we could go on forever, but yes, we're here for each other.
Yes.
We're here for each other.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that's an amazing way to end. Thank you, Rebekah, for all that you're doing, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
So what I love more than anything when it comes to Kind Cotton are the people that I've met, the conversations surrounding community and kindness and activism. Rebekah made my day more than they will ever know. And I truly hope that each and every one of you in your own way can go out into your community this week and support one another. Go the extra mile. And if you are the one who needs that support, don't be ashamed in asking for it. That's what community and love and empathy is all about. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Kindness Is podcast. If you love it and it's adding even a little bit of value to your life, we would love, love, love if you could subscribe, rate, and review so we can reach even more people and make this world a little bit more kind.